Is this property investment strategy dead? In March 2021, Jacinda Ardern and Grant Robertson introduced new tax laws. They're called interest deductibility. And what this does is it taxes your investment property as if you don't have a mortgage, despite the fact that you still have a mortgage. And this means that some property investors will pay way more in tax. And that increase in taxes has killed one of the most common property investment strategies. So in today's video, you're going to learn which strategy just got its butt kicked by bureaucrats and the two other property investment strategies that still work in 2022 and 2023. Now, in the past, the most common property investment strategy was to buy a basic existing property and do a very basic cosmetic renovation. You'd replace the carpet, give the walls a lick of paint, maybe do up the letterbox. And hey, that was about it. It was a great time. It was a good time. But it's now time for this property investment strategy to rest in peace, because two factors have slain that strategy. The first are those interest deductibility changes we just talked about. These have massively impacted the cash flow of existing properties even after these sorts of renovations. Look, say you've owned this property for a while. Before the tax changes, the cash flow was positive $50 a week. And now let's say you've got a $500K mortgage on that and the interest rate is 5%. Well, if you bought that same property today with that low mortgage, after the tax changes, your cash flow, it's negative $108 a week. Now, that means that you're paying an extra $158 a week just to tax because it's an existing property. And again, these numbers are based off a pretty low mortgage. If you bought it today with 100% finance, hey, these numbers would look horrendous. Now, the second factor that has slain that strategy are the LVR restrictions, which were introduced by my buddy Adrian Orr from the Reserve Bank. Now, this means that you can't borrow as much money against existing investment properties. And in property investment circles, we often talk about the BRRRR method. Now, this is where you put your deposit down to buy a house, you do a renovation, which increases the property's value, and then you borrow your whole deposit back from the bank against that higher value. Now, under the current Reserve Bank restrictions, you need to increase the property's value by at least a whopping 66% to do this. Look, a basic cosmetic renovation won't do that. So it's time to all hold hands and hold a vigil and lay this once popular property investment strategy down to rest. It served its purpose, but it's not relevant anymore. And that raises the really important question of what should you do instead? The first strategy is investing in newly built properties. Now, this is a passive strategy where you don't have to wield a paintbrush. And if we think about those two hurdles, poor cash flow from interest deductibility rules and large deposits required from the LVR restrictions, new builds jump over both of these. And that's because newly built properties don't face these new interest deductibility rules until 20 years after they're built, and they also don't face the Reserve Bank's deposit rules before they're built. So how do you make money from this strategy? Well, because you need a lower deposit, you're primarily going to focus on growing a portfolio of new builds, and then you're going to make money as those properties go up in value, what we call capital growth. And if you want to invest in new builds, then you need to know that we've got a service at Opus Partners where we help you find the right new build investment properties for you. And I'll put a link in the description where you can learn more about this. The second strategy is a process we call cash flow hacking, where you substantially renovate your properties to increase both their rent and their value. Now, this gets over those two hurdles because in terms of the new taxes, you're increasing the rent by such a degree you can compensate for those extra taxes. And in terms of the Reserve Bank's deposit requirements, you're increasing the property's value enough so you can jump over this hurdle too. Now, this isn't easy. So we've put together our 6 cash flow hacking steps that, from our experience and analysis, have the biggest impact on both the value and the rent. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these in detail since there's a lot of content about this on the Opus Partners website. But my favorite is number 1, where you add an extra bedroom within the current internal floor plan. Now, because you've got an extra bedroom, you can charge more rent. Number 2, turning it into a multi-tenancy. Number 3 is doing up the kitchens and bathrooms, which has a massive impact on both rentability and value. Number 4 is changing the fixtures and fittings. Now, these are things like lights, light switches, doorknobs, door handles, things like that. Number 5 is painting the interior walls. And number 6 is bringing the carpets back to life, whether by cleaning or replacing them. And if you want to go down this cash flow hacking route, then we also have Opus Accelerate. Now, this is where we can coach you to renovate properties successfully. And you can find out more through the link in the description. So in the past, lots of investors would do basic cosmetic renovations on existing properties. And only a few would look at new builds, and only a few again would do hefty cash flow hacking renovations. But government regulation has changed the game.
You suck!
The LVR restrictions and new tax rules have thinned out that central strategy, cosmetic renovations, and most investors are either going for new builds or doing really hefty cash flow hacking renovations. And hey, if you want to learn more about how to make both those strategies work, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We release a new video every Monday and Wednesday.